Welcome to the Frequency Labyrinth. I am Adrienne McDonald, your host. This podcast is for you if you're done with surface level self-help and ready for something deeper and actually transformative. Around here, we work with ancient wisdom, human design, gene keys, and shamanic practices, not as knowledge to collect, but as tools to live by. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about learning to work with your energy, your design, and your life. This is about integration and embodiment. We go deep here with ancient wisdom, practical integration, so that you can develop ironclad self-trust. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back. I am still struggling with my voice, so I have my cozy beverage to help me get through this. We are going to be talking about the energy mix for July. I think the theme of July is, well, it's disruption, but disruption to allow innovation and discernment and resonance. So if June was the month to ask what nourishes me, then July asks what still fits and what no longer belongs in the version of you that's becoming. And here's the part that a lot of people skip. Once you name what nourishes you, you can't keep tolerating what drains you, and that's where the disruption happens. That's where the innovation starts. But it's not a punishment, it's a frequency shift. So we're going to talk about astrology from a high level, and we're going to talk about the human design gates. So we got some major players in motion this month. Neptune is going to retrograde today, July 4th, and retrograde will start in Aries and go back to Pisces. So when that veil lifts, sometimes things get murky before they get clear. And Neptune is not really all about instant clarity. It's more like wading in a lake at dusk, right? The shape of what's beneath you, but you can't quite see it. And Neptune in retrograde exposes to us where we've been confusing like fantasy for, say, faith, where we built dreams that were never rooted in reality, but felt good at the time. So if something starts to feel off, pay attention, because it's not necessarily wrong, but it may not have deep roots. So pay attention to that. Because Neptune's going to be sort of like editing your illusions. So then Uranus, depending on how you say it, enters Gemini in July 7th. And this is big because Uranus has not been in Gemini since the early 40s, and this isn't a quick blip. This is the start of a 7-year cycle. And actually, right now, I've been reflecting on what the last 7 years of Uranus being in Taurus has meant for me, because it's been in my 11th house. And the 11th house is like your social networks and your friendships and connections and that sort of thing. And I look at the amount of change that's happened in that area of my life, and it's like, and of course, Ming in the last degree, it's really like got its thumb on me pressing. So if you're feeling that, you might want to check where you have Uranus in your chart, in your whole sign house, and give some reflection to that. As it moves into Gemini, Gemini is like the sign of communication and cognition and connection and narrative. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how Uranus changes how we, the collective, communicate. And because Uranus is also the planet of innovation, and I think it's going to be, things are going to be start to move fast over time in your chart, where you have Gemini. I think that we'll see unexpected shifts in how we collectively communicate. There's probably going to be tech revolutions that impact attention and nervous system regulation. And I think that overall, right now with the combination with Saturn and being in Aries as well, there's a lot of talk around power dynamics, and I think that's going to just ramp up because this transit is going to unfold for years. However, whenever a planet moves into a new sign, it sort of sets the tone. And for Uranus, you might feel restless, or you might feel like a little electric. You might get some sudden insight. So that will be something to watch. And then Saturn retrogrades July 13th. It's going to be moving backwards in Aries. And I think Saturn will be asking, what are you trying to build? Or where are you trying to build a new life on an old, outdated identity? Like, Saturn tends to be the harsh planet of the solar system. It wants things to be real. Aries isn't just about fire and fight. It's also about really authentic initiation. And Saturn retrograde sort of brings that reckoning of what are you building for approval instead of alignment, or coming from an authentic place. Saturn really presses on the need for authenticity. So you can expect pressure around responsibility, around boundaries, and this is responsibility especially around self-leadership, boundaries, especially energetic ones, identity and ego structures that just no longer resonate. And this is like a refinement. This is like a little bit of that recalibration. I think I said in the newsletter this month, it was like, does anybody remember those GPSs that kept saying recalibrating? So sort of this whole month gives me that type of vibe. Mercury retrograde starts July 17th. We're already in the shadow period. And it goes to, I think it's August 11th. And, it's layered with the Uranus and Neptune shifts and the Saturn. It's asking us to slow down a bit more, speak with more precisions, to use more discernment. So you might notice miscommunications that expose deeper misalignments, a need to revisit things that you thought were handled, a pull towards silence, simplicity, space. Do not text your ex. I mean, that's what the pop astrology always says. We have a Capricorn full moon coming up, and that the Capricorn full moon's all about reality. And that's going to happen on July 10th. And it's the reality check moon. It shines a light on the scaffolding of your life and asks, is this structure supporting whom I'm becoming? Or is it just keeping me in place? So it's a very practical full moon. And then we have a Leo new moon on July 24th. And it's got some interesting transits that are going along with it. So it's going to be a bit of a gritty new moon, I think. Leo likes to shine, but I think that there's going to be some difficult placements with that. But I'll talk about that more closer to July 24th when that happens. So what does this all mean together? It means we're recalibrating, right? And we're preparing for where we can be innovative. And we are thinking about where power dynamics are, that both personal power dynamics and also the collective's power dynamics. So, as I've said before on the podcast, we get the same gates every year at the same time or about the same time. But when you look at the rest of what's going on in the skies, these gates look a little different, right? We're looking at them through a different lens. So the first gate that comes up that's the sun is transiting through in July is gate 39. So that's the gate that we're in right now as you're listening to this podcast, is gate of provocation from July 1st to July 6th. And the shadow of this gate is called, in the gene keys, is called provocation. And then the gift is dynamicism. Oh, I can't talk today. This gate is a live wire. It opens the month by poking the parts of you that are still pretending. It's not trying to be polite. It's trying to free you. But liberation doesn't always feel good at first. It feels like agitation. And I can personally attest to the last couple of days I have been really agitated. Especially as Uranus is moving out of my 11th house. I can feel things around my social networks, my friendships. There are things that are irritating me more than usual. So I've been paying attention to that. In relationships, gate 39's energy may surface as emotional triggers or passive resistance, but the invitation is to get really honest. And what's provoking you isn't always the problem. Sometimes it's the messenger. So don't kill the messenger, that type of thing. You got to go a little bit deeper and go underneath and go, okay, all right, this is not about this person. This is about like something deeper than that. So let the discomfort lead you back to where you want to be free, and don't think about this as being fixed or fixing. This is more about, okay, where is the liberation in this? And then we move to gate 53. And gate 53, I think, starts on July 7th. And gate 53 is a gate of development. And in the gene keys, the gift is expansion, and the shadow is immaturity. And with Uranus entering Gemini during this gate, the temptation may be, you maybe feel called to leap into something new, to start fresh, reinvention, relaunch. And sure, there's momentum here. There could be lots of momentum with this gate, but momentum without grounding, that's just noise. And so gate 53 may say to you, begin, yes, but begin with intentionality. This is the energy of commitment with a lot of consciousness, with intentional thought, and expansion that honors your capacity, not just your ambition, like something that is sustainable. So check in with where you're chasing novelty instead of depth, where you're saying yes out of boredom or burnout, whether your current next thing is really based in alignment or urgency. And I think that with Saturn turning retrograde, that's going to really put a spotlight on this. This gate is where short-sighted success gets really stripped away. And Saturn's really going to put a highlight on that, and where the long game reveals itself. So then we move into gate 62 on July 13th, and this is a gate of details. And the shadow of it is the intellect, which is, I always thought that was a very interesting shadow. And the gift is precision. I think of this as right as Mercury is slowing to retrograde, gate 62 comes in to sort of look at the narrative in a different way because this gate doesn't really care about how much you know, because obviously, intellect is the shadow, but it cares a lot about what you say is anchored, because this is a throat-centered gate. So it's not just about logic, it's about energetic clarity. Gate 62 asked, are your words in resonance with your values? And I think a lot of people are going to be looking at their values and power dynamics, especially over the rest of the year, with these larger planets doing the shifts. So notice where you're explaining out of maybe insecurity, where you're over detailing to compensate for doubt, where a few aligned words could carry much more weight than overthinking could, or over explaining could. This gate invites us to speak with precision and not from a performative place. And in a month full of pressure to prove or pivot, this is going to be really important to pay attention to. And then July 19th, we move into the gate of stimulation. And the shadow is distraction, and the gift is enrichment. This is the gate of storytelling. But not all stories are great to create, and not all stories are great to consume. And gate 56 asked, what are you consuming and what are you creating? Because when stimulation becomes a way of escapism, your clarity gets distorted. And I always say to pay attention to what you're communicating and what you're creating. But with the Leo new moon rising at the end of this gate's transit, there's a real invitation here to speak from the heart, not from the habit or from a performative place. And this is where you may look at where you overshare to feel connection, especially with people that don't have the capacity to hold space for you, where you are chasing novelty to avoid stillness. Express what is expected, not what actually feels true and alive to you. But when used well, gate 56 can really enrich the collective with stories that carry soul, that carry innovation, that carry inspiration, that spark. And that's where resonance can really become contagious and be used for collectively lifting all of us instead of collectively bringing us all down. It's sort of like the opposite of like the mob mentality stuff that we see out on the internet and social media. And then gate 31 is the gate of leadership. It comes in on July 25th, and the shadow is arrogance, and the gift is leadership. It's another throat-centered gate. The theme is influence through resonance, not control. And this is where leadership can get really defined, and not in a, cute social media Instagram-y way. Because it asks you to check your relationship with visibility, with authority, and with voice. This is I think that up until this point in the month, we're being sort of teased with that thought of how power dynamics could be different. And this is where I feel like it's going to be really highlighted. Because again, it's going to ask you to check your relationship with visibility, authority, and voice. And are you leading because it's yours to lead, or because it's what you've always done, or the way you've always done it? And the shadow of this gate is performative leadership, speaking to be seen rather than to serve. And the gift of is that leadership that resonates, it's because it's being embodied. This is again another throat-centered gate, right? So this is about the voice. And you can ask, is your voice rooted in clarity, or is it curated for approval? Are you leading from ego, or are you leading from essence? And this really isn't about who talks the most. It's about who holds the clearest frequency. And the acidic state of this particular gate is humility. And I think we are all aware enough that you have a lot of people that can hold a lot of influence that may not have the collective interest in mind. But we're seeing this a lot in the world right now. And a lot of people are screaming and shouting, but they're not saying anything. They're just screaming and shouting to be screaming and shouting. And I think this gate really drives the point home of people can't hear you unless the leadership is really embodied. So get really clear on where you want to lead from. And again, I think all the excavation that a lot of us have gone through in the earlier part of this year, I was listening to someone talk about the fact that a lot of clearing, a lot of shedding happened, especially like in February and March. And then like the later half of this year is really about the integration and putting a lot of things into practice. And I think that we're going to see, especially with Uranus moving into Gemini, a lot more opportunity for innovative approaches to really complex problems. And we're going to see some new leaders emerge during this time. And I hope that that's a more positive thing. So I'm going to hold that for the collective. Then July 31st, we round out the month with gate 33, which is the gate of privacy. And this is, again, another throat-centered gate. We're very throat-heavy in July. And the theme is integration and memory and sacred pause. The shadow is forgetting. And the gift is mindfulness. And I feel like we close out July with a little bit of a whisper. And it's an opportunity for like a review. Because this gate, it doesn't really want to create as much as it wants to integrate. And, with June being all about nourishment and July being all about what's in resonance with me, what's resonating, what's not. And this energy says before you rush into August, give it a moment. Let your body process. Let your system catch up. And it's like the exhale after being the provocation and the pressure and the purification, if you will. And this July is really challenging, patterns and plans. And I feel like we're going to need that pause at the end of July into early August. So that's that's the last human design gate that the sun finishes July out in. So let's take a breath here, because the next layer isn't about the sky. It's about your body, your system, the way you hold, respond to, and react under pressure. July is, like I said, is really root and throat month in the human design landscape, which means that we're dealing with a lot of root pressure, that buzzing, subtle, or not so subtle, pushing, go, go, go. And then we have the throat activation, which is that desire to speak, to be heard, express, lead, release tension through words or actions. And when you combine that with Mercury and Saturn and Neptune in retrograde and Uranus making a generational shift and 2 potent moons, you get this really strange cocktail of internal urgency and external uncertainty. So let's take a second to look at what happens to your nervous system in this energy. If you tend towards fight, flight, you may feel the need to over-explain yourself or say too quickly or try to lead or create before you're actually clear. If you lean towards freeze or flight, you may numb out, feel the urge to numb out or ghost your desires or tell yourself it's not the right time when actually it is, but your system is overloaded. And if you've been programmed to perform, this energy will absolutely tempt you to lead from the mask. So I think those are the things that you need to be aware of. I think that the gate 31 is really, the gate this month of saying it doesn't tolerate performative leaderships. It demands the resonance. And resonance doesn't come from proving, it comes from presence. And I think that that's something to keep in mind the entire month, so that you can manage your energy appropriately and come from that place of ironclad self-trust, right? That's the whole purpose of working with these transits and working with your human design and becoming more rooted in yourself. Power dynamics are really getting, like I said, the focus, whether it's in your business or your relationship or your inner dialogue. The old power structures that have kept you compliant or, small or over responsible, this year they've really started to crack, right? Saturn in retrograde in Aries is showing you where your self-leadership may have been built on survival and not sovereignty. And you may notice a tension between being seen and being safe, being right and being real, being in charge and being in integrity. And, that disruption isn't really the problem. It's, have you been honest with yourself? Are you moving from a place of being in integrity? So when you feel the pressure this month, ask yourself, is this pressure authentic? Is this an inner nudge to align with your values, or is it programmed? Is it a fear-based pattern trying to keep you relevant or loved or in control? Because you can't fake resonance. You can't force clarity, but you can slow down and choose what you give your voice to, what you give your energy to, what you give your attention to. So when we do get on the other side of pressure and the being provoked and the invitation to speak what's only true, like that's when you're like, okay, I felt the gates, I've tracked the transits, I've noticed where my nervous system tightens and where it releases and where there's something deeper to unlock. So just remember, this is not about managing your energy to stay in control. It's about learning to just trust the inner knowing so it can lead you back to what's real for you. And, because resonance doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from letting go of what no longer fits. And power isn't found in how loud you are or how polished you seem or how well you manage perception. Power is found, really true power is found in your willingness to choose what's true and what's integrity for you, even when it costs you comfort. And I think that, we as humans have such a weird relationship with power. And the whole self-development industry is built on, self-power or whatnot. I look as power as, reclaiming your power, etc., and all the work that you do in self-development as something that can really fortify you so that you can go out and be a better human and impact the collective in a more positive way. I feel like that's the only reason to do all this work, is to be able to be a better human and go out and have a positive impact on the world. So that's what I'll leave you with this. Where have I mistaken control for power? And what would true power feel like instead? Where would power and true integrity, what would that feel like? What would that look like? And let that question sort of settle with you this month. Let it work for you. And maybe not for total answers, but maybe for just being in a little bit more alignment. So if you are ready to move through this and need support, and I wanted to let you know that all sessions are open for July. We now have made the updates, and I have shamanic healing sessions for when you're ready to release what's weighing you down, and that's the deep energetic work. And Karis sessions are for sharp, intuitive insight when you're at a turning point. And of course, human design readings to really do a deep dive into your chart. And that link will be in the show notes. And I do really appreciate you bearing with me and my weird voice. It's very strange that this has been going on for about a month now. But I hopefully will be a little bit stronger in voice next week. Remember to find beauty every day and seek the magic in the Monday. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. Let whatever landed move through you in whatever way it needs to or wants to. And also, if you want to explore more, you'll find more information in the show notes. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it out or leave a quick review. It helps so much, and I really appreciate it. And remember, this work is about integration, and it always starts with self-trust.